Hey guys, really quick, I wanted to take a second and talk about podcasting. Why? Because this medium has been the greatest thing to ever happen to me. A little over 5.5 years ago, I bought a $60 microphone and everything in my life has changed. I've gone on to build a successful business, live events, a lucrative speaking career, and I've been able to connect and become friends with some of the most influential thought leaders in the world, all because of podcasting. Now, you might not know this about me, but I've also helped multiple other people do the same thing. I usually work one-on-one with high-ticket clients to help them really build their brand. But so many people were asking me, Justin, I need to know the secret. So I've actually put together a masterclass. So if you head over to purposedrivenpodcaster.com, you can sign up for the masterclass today and learn exactly how I've been able to build this business, and you can too. This course is for wannabe podcasters and also podcasters who aren't getting the results that they want. Again, head over to purposedrivenpodcaster.com, grab your masterclass now, dive in, and take your life to the next level. Welcome to the Growth Now movement. I'm your host, Justin Shank. I'm an entrepreneur, speaker, and podcaster who years ago decided to go on a journey on how to grow in all areas of my life. What I found out was it's really a matter of focusing on the 4 pillars of life: business, relationships, spirituality, and wellness. And that's what we do here. We explore how to continuously grow in those areas, all while having a ton of fun doing it. I'm really excited you're on this journey with me. Now let's get to this week's episode. This week, I sit down with Parker Stelly. Parker is an engineer turned entrepreneur who now helps small businesses scale and grow their teams while also increasing profitability. Parker has co-owned a small business that has specialized in online training and physical product fulfillment over the last 3 years and has helped implement processes and procedures to scale that business to multi-7 figures. This year, they're expecting to hit 8 figures, which is absolutely amazing. And you can obviously learn more at themakersuniversity.com. I absolutely loved this conversation that I had with Parker. I think you guys will too. The guy just knows his stuff. We go deep on so many business tactics and approaches that you can take right now in your business, no matter how big or small, right? This conversation isn't for those 7-figure earners. I mean, although it can be, this is also for those people just starting out and really trying to take their business to the next level without burning themselves out. Now, before we get to that conversation, I want to remind you guys that Growth Now Summit Live is coming, and it's coming quick. May of 2022. We have a little less than 60 tickets left, so head over to growthnowsummit.com, grab your tickets, and join myself and other thought leaders from around the world to help you improve in the 4 pillars of your life: business, spirituality, relationships, and wellness. I cannot wait to see you there. Now, without further ado, let's get to the episode with Parker Stelly. Parker, welcome to the show, man.
What's up, Justin, man? Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
No, for sure. You know, we got introduced from my coach, Roberto, and who's obviously been on the show. So anybody listening to this, if you didn't listen to that episode, go back and listen to that one. And he introduced me to you, and we connected a couple of weeks ago, and was just really impressed with what you've built and your knowledge behind how to grow and scale businesses. And, you know, a lot of the times on my show, it's very entry level entrepreneurial conversation. You're talking next level, right? Once you get to that point of like, I'm at my wit's end, what do I do next? Like, you're that guy. And we're going to get into all those details, but why don't you take a second and talk about who is Parker today? And then we'll dive in and talk about how you got there.
Sure. Yeah. So Parker today, I'm the co-owner of Deco Exchange, right? So we are hopefully this year, I'm crossing my fingers. Hopefully I can say we're an 8-figure business this year. I'm cutting it close. We're definitely pushing for some milestones here, but at the very least, a multi-7-figure business owner. But the fun part about it is we are a wreath business. So hang on your door, create it, craft show, wreath. It's so obscure. It's so random, but you know, everyone always says the riches are in the niches, and wreath making has been a really great niche for us to get into and for us to really grow a business in. So, yeah, that's kind of who I am now. I have so many different hats. I do so many different things. We have a physical product side of our business. We have an educational side of our business. I have my hands in a little bit of everything. So I kind of consider myself a jack of all trades of our business. But yeah, that's kind of Parker now.
No, I love it. And I love the fact, first of all, you sent me a wreath and I love it. And people who listen to this, I think at this point, they know I'm obsessed with Christmas. And if they don't, they know now. And we love it. We can't wait to hang it. Obviously it's all fall stuff right now in our house, but
sure,
you know, soon enough. I'm the November 1st guy. The girlfriend fights me a little bit on that one, but we'll see how it goes, but love the wreath. But the thing is, like you just said, you may have an 8-figure business with wreaths. And some
Yeah,
people are sitting out there going, I can't make money in my niche. There's not enough people. Like, think
sure.
about what we're talking about here. And the fact that and I want to go down this path here, the part of your business of education. Yeah, people are like, oh yeah, of course you sell a lot of wreaths if you can get online. But now you have this whole entire stream of income in education in such a niche. How did that even begin? Let's talk about the beginning process of getting into this business, because I think a lot of people listening, they're in that beginning stage process.
Sure. So let me first preface by saying I'm not the creative one of our the business, right? Like I said, I'm the co-owner. My business partner Damon, he's extremely creative. He's also extremely smart. We're both retired chemical engineers. We both worked for major oil and gas companies before this, but he kind of used wreath making as a pastime, and through all of that, we would hang stuff on our door. And then it got to the point where people would stop and say, hey, can I buy that? And we were selling stuff off of our door, which is kind of just crazy in itself, but it happened. It happened multiple times. And, Damon kind of morphed that into, okay, we started making a bunch of wreaths and selling them at craft shows. So we would go to local shows and, church shows and all these different places and actually sell the physical product. But at some point, we realized that the people stopping to see our wreaths were wreath makers. They didn't want to buy the wreath. They wanted to know, how did we make the wreath? And at that time, I was still working as an engineer. And I told Damon one day, I'm like, dude, these people are making millions of dollars on Twitch. I don't know if you've ever talked about Twitch or if you even know what it is, but streaming video games, it's like an entertainment thing. And
Yeah.
I said, wouldn't it be cool if we could, if I wanted to at the time, quit my job and just stream video games? And he kind of morphed that into, I should make wreaths on stream. So he started doing that, and all of a sudden things just exploded. We decided to take the Facebook route, just judging on the demographic, older women, most of them are on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
So he started doing videos on Facebook, and the saying that I just said rang true. People didn't want to buy the wreaths. They wanted to learn how to make the wreaths. So with that, we made a tutorial. We sold a $10 tutorial. Here's how you make this. I think it was a flip-flop wreath, kind of like the flip-flops I have hanging down behind me. But we've made thousands and thousands, probably tens of thousands of dollars now on that one tutorial. And that's kind of what kickstarted our business into online content creation, education. And it's just been quite the roller coaster ride since then.
Yeah, that's crazy. And there's so many people who they're afraid to put themselves out there thinking I may be judged, et cetera. Right. And you guys were like, you know what, let's give it a whirl. This is something I'm passionate about. I know there's some interest out there. You didn't realize how much, but you've built a whole entire community around this, right? Like, this is something that you guys have really built out.
It's absolutely insane. We have around, I'm not a huge vanity metric kind of person, but we have around 370 something thousand followers on Facebook. We've done multiple live events. One live event, probably my favorite so far, was in 2019, right before COVID. We had a live event in New Orleans, and we had over 1,000 wreath makers in person in one room. And that's really when I was like, holy smokes, we've got this huge following. And honestly, the biggest part about it is the stories that how we impacted people. We've had people who were, they couldn't support themselves. They had abusive husbands. They needed to leave and they couldn't. We've helped change people's lives through something as random, as simple as wreath making. We gave them an outlet for depression. We gave them an outlet to leave an abusive relationship. We've done all of these things, and people continue to do it every day. I hate saying us and me and all this stuff. People find peace and outlets through the most random things. And it was just so cool to see that many people together, building friends, networking. It was just something crazy. So when you say community, that's immediately what I saw. I just had to throw that out there. It really is a family that we've kind of, I don't want to say built, but we have a family surrounding us now in this wreath making community.
Yeah, which I love, man. And I'm all about impacting lives. And I say all the time, like, your passion doesn't have to necessarily be to improve lives, but if you're living in your passion, if you're truly giving what you're excited about, it will change your life, no matter what it is. So I love the fact that this wreath making, allowed women to leave abusive relationships or vice versa, and it allowed people to really embrace their passions to create a life that they never thought to be true. And I love that, man. So let's talk a
Absolutely.
little bit about what your role is with the company, so we can dive into that a little bit. Obviously you're talking about the beginning stages and the growth and what it's become now, but what is your role currently with the company as far as the scaling and the growing and all that fun stuff?
Currently, I think the best description of what I do is the operations manager. So I oversee all of our virtual staff. I oversee our social media team. I oversee our warehouse staff. Um, I kind of, I don't know if have you ever heard of the book Rocket Fuel?
I haven't.
Roberto has talked about it to me before, but basically the idea is there's a builder and then there's an architect. The architect has the vision and the builder makes it happen. So I'm the builder in our business. Damon has these crazy ideas. Let's make a subscription box. So I'm like, okay, let's make a subscription box. So I build that and then we continue to grow it. So and just going off of that example, last year, January 2020, let's say 700 subscribers on our subscription box, which is already pretty successful. Today, October 7th, 2021, we have 2,700 subscribers on
Wow.
that subscription box. So my role in that was making like the path to get there, right? The stepping stones to get there. So finding the boxes, sourcing the materials, selecting the product, finding, marketing to the buyers, all of that stuff. So I was kind of, that was my role. And every part of our business, that's really my role, is getting to where the architect sees the final product.
Yeah. And I think when I hear those things, I think scale, right? I think a lot of what you just said to people that are listening who are looking to grow their business, that they become overwhelmed, right? They go, holy crap, because they are the visionary. They're like, oh my God, I don't know how to implement any of that stuff. I don't even know where to begin. What is your process in order to go, first of all, will this even work? Like I mean, you might at this point, because your business is doing so well, you're able to take a loss to figure out if it works or not, right? I'm sure you've had some failures along the way, maybe, but tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, sure. We teach thousands of creatives. Like I said, we have an educational side of the business, and my philosophy is always start as simply as possible. You see the Amazons of the world, you see the Walmarts, and they have drones flying around picking stuff out of the inventory. We don't have that, right? We have people walking around in our warehouse picking stuff. But my process is to start as simple as possible. It doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles. It doesn't have to have everything perfect. Chances are you're going to mess a bunch of things up along the way. But the thing is, from those mess ups, you take those as lessons and you optimize it at the end. So I say simplify, implement, optimize. That's my kind of like my shtick, right? The SIO is what I call it. So let's say we're starting a subscription box. I wanted to start as simple as possible. We started with just a few hundred people. I got the process down, right? I started implementing that process. And then now that we had that thing implemented, I can scale it. I can optimize it to 2,700. We're hoping to have 3,200 by the end of the year. But that's kind of my process, so to speak. Start as simple as possible, break it down to building block level. I think of it kind of like Legos, right? You have, when you're a kid, they have those huge blocks with the letters on them. I don't know what they're actually called, but the blocks. And then you move on to Legos, and then all of a sudden you have a kid building a Millennium Falcon, right? So that's kind of the same process in my head when I think about building a business. You're not going to start out with the huge Millennium Falcon Lego. You're going to start with the building blocks, and you're going to go from there.
Yeah, no, I love that. And just to simplify everything that we do, right? Like there's an acronym, which is SIBKIS, see it big, keep it simple.
Yeah.
And even when it's big, it's best to keep it simple, right? People overcomplicate things. They double down on things that aren't necessary, all that stuff. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, as you guys are growing and building a team around you, and when you knew, when it was time to really start bringing in people, and B, you talk about a virtual, your virtual employees and then your warehouse employees. How do you know what to put where, right? Like if you're like, okay, well, this person can be virtual, this person can't, like, how do you identify those things?
Oh man, that's a whole other thing. But so let's start with just building the team, right? So we've always had the philosophy of we don't go into debt to grow our business. So with that same philosophy in mind, I figure out how I'm going to pay for someone before I have to pay for someone. So I already have that cash flow coming in. And for that time, I just kind of work a little harder to cover that. So I work a little harder. I'm like, okay, I can hand this off to someone. And now that time I'm getting back is worth more to me than what I'm paying that employee. Right. So I come from the oil and gas world. We come from the contractor world. And I actually have an ebook about this. I can send you the link if you want, or we can talk a little more about it, whatever. It's basically determining what your time is worth. I was a contractor in the refinery offshore world. So I always had this idea of my time is worth $55 an hour, $75 an hour, whatever it is. You can hire VAs now for, 8, 10, 12, $15 an hour. So if I'm doing a job that I can outsource to someone else for less money, I can get my time back, my $75 hour back. I can trade it for a $12 an hour job. And then all of a sudden, that's how you scale a business, right? You
Right.
pay less for time to get more time back, to get more money.
Yeah. No, dude, I love that. And I have very much the same thought process with everything that I do that's new. I go, can I pay for it? Like, how do I make the money before I write the check? Right.
Sure.
And that's something that, I've done with my live events, with
Sure.
these retreats, all those things, right? We did a retreat, kind of threw it out there. Hey, who would be interested before I even got a location? Had enough to pay for a location. And I was like, okay, everything
Absolutely.
else is gravy. Right. And then
Yep.
same thing for the second time around down in New Orleans, which you won't even be there when I'm there. But with that being said, it's one of those like, the smartest business model is going, okay, it's already paid for before you dive in, before you go through that stuff. So how do you, as you're building this entire thing out, I know you've helped other people outside of the wreath industry as well, that your genius isn't only in wreath business building. Tell me a little bit about how you've gotten involved with other creatives and kind of help them grow and scale. Is it just strictly through coaching? Do you do the contract out like you used to in the oil company, or what?
So we currently have a few different options in our business. We have a membership course that's more of a one coach to many. And we actually have, 6 or 7 coaches now in our business coaching group that all specialize in certain things. So that's kind of where it all starts, right? So our funnel, it starts with the coaching and then kind of gets narrowed down from there. But we have a group of around 2,000, mostly creative business owners. But I will say one thing that probably remains true for all of them is it's a physical product, or at least some sort of product. And we really just teach them how to market their product online, right? It's really, really basic stuff when it comes to building a business online. Get your product seen, have a place to collect money, and have a place to sell it. So a lot of the times we're like, hey, go on to Etsy, right? We do obviously harbor a lot of crafty, handmade people. And Etsy is just a really great place for that because they already have people shopping. So that's one of the 3 things already out the way. You can already get your product on there and then you can collect money. So it really just knocks out all of those things. But in terms of that, or in terms of more education, we have a one-on-one type coaching where it's a monthly thing. They get a call. So we do work directly with other people, strictly diving into their business, what they do, what they should do. And then we also have mastermind groups, which I think you have a few mastermind groups as well. So I think most of your listeners probably know what that is. But we kind of get a bunch of similar people together so that they can talk about what's working for them, what's not working for them. And it's kind of like a think tank, right? Where they kind of give each other different advice, but we are more of the curators of those people, and we kind of navigate the conversation in a positive way. So that's definitely the main ways that we help business owners right now. We don't necessarily make trips out and kind of go hands-on on their business. It's more of a virtual thing where we kind of just give them, hey, go in this direction.
Yeah. And I know there's a number of creatives that listen to this show. So take advantage. Like real quick, I usually don't do this in the middle of the interview, but where can they go to get more information about that stuff?
Themakersuniversity.com is the best place to go. We have a collective of business coaches. We have actually 6. They're live Monday through Friday. I don't want to make this a huge ad about that, but that's kind of, we kind of morphed, Damon teaching into, we call it the Makers University, right? Because everyone's a maker. If you think about it, you're making some kind of content, and it's kind of just like a play on words where you're either making something physical or you're making some content that you want to sell to someone. So it's called the Makers University.
I love it. Love it. So I want to dive into some technical stuff, right? You're talking about get your product seen.
Sure.
There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of algorithm. There's a lot of people shouting, right? Like I always say that, like, Twitter is everybody shouting and nobody's listening. And, that's kind of social media in general. When you really think about it, you might get lucky if you get a double tap on one of your posts, right?
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about how somebody can do that, specifically on a lesser budget, like get their product seen, get their course seen, do all those things. Where do you recommend they go, and what are the tactics they should take?
Sure. So I think the first thing to do is think about your customer avatar. Surely, I haven't listened to every single episode of your podcast, but most people into business have heard customer avatar. We call it perfect person. You want to know who that person is. We have someone, her name's Debbie. She's 45, 50, whatever it is. She drives a 2020 something, whatever. Her husband's retired. She's an empty nester. Like, I know all of these things about that person. So once you develop or kind of have an idea of who that is, think about, where does Debbie hang out? For us, it was Facebook, right? So we can talk to Debbie on Facebook, and there's 300 something thousand people, Debbie's on our Facebook page now. So think about who your perfect customer is. And we have a whole process on figuring all that stuff out. But once you figure out who your avatar is, think about where they hang out and then talk only to them. I say this a lot in our business coaching whenever they're like, oh, only so many people have saw whatever. Identifying who you don't want to see your stuff is almost as important as identifying who you want to see your stuff. Because if you try to talk to everyone, you're not going to make sense to anyone, right? You're going to go too many directions. So we always say to just focus on that one Debbie. But as far as where you can see it, for us, we have obviously very visual stuff. So Pinterest is great for us. Facebook is great for us. Instagram is great for us. But a lot of people think that you have to pay for ads and all this stuff. Y'all, there's a lot of really great stuff just using SEO, which is just good titles, good description, good tags. It's free. You just have to know how to speak to Debbie, right? Is Debbie going to be really technical and know exactly what all of these different things are? No, she's just trying to learn a little bit. So let's just take a Christmas wreath, for example. And I don't know if I'm speaking to your people or not, so just stop me. But they don't know that it's a curl and poof method wreath, right? They just want a red and green Christmas wreath. Do you see the difference? A curl and poof wreath and a red and green Christmas wreath. One of them I'm talking to Debbie, one of them I'm talking to an expert. So make sure whenever you're talking to your people, talk on their level in a way that they understand. And that's true for SEO. That's true for content creation. That's true for video creation. So that's really how you get your stuff seen, is make sure you're speaking the right language to the right person.
That's so powerful. And I think just what you said in the very beginning is like, know who you're talking to. Too often I work with people or talk with people who, well, who do you want to serve? I want to serve everybody. I want to serve, I want to make sure that I get in front of everybody. I want I want a young entrepreneur. That's not even niche enough. Like, you need to know exactly everything about this person. As a matter of fact, on the podcast course that I sell, the first section of it is identifying who is that person. And I talk about, what's their political side? Are they married? Do they have children? Mm-hmm. Do they, and I break it down. Do they have pets? And if they do, what kind of pets do they have? Like, to really, really know that person on a personal level. Right. And yeah, guess what? It's not an actual person. You're not like, okay, now but overall you get that exact person, and then you know who you're talking to. And when you write your copy, and like, the more technical side is when you write the SEO, you know what they need to hear. They know what they want to hear, how they want to hear it, and all that other stuff. That's just so freaking powerful to be like, hey, we have Debbie, right? And I think that so many people miss that boat to not take a second and figure that out. Is there an exercise that you walk people through? I don't want to take away from something you're selling, but is there an exercise you do to help people figure out who that person is?
To an extent, but like, honestly, the best way I can explain it is, whenever you're scrolling through whatever you're scrolling through and you see one of those dumb memes and you're like, oh my God, that's so me. And you send it to your friend, or you send it to your significant other, or whatever it is. And you both are like, oh my God, that's you. That's how you know when you're speaking to your person. Whenever you can create some content that resonates so well with them that they can't help but say, oh my God, that is so me. And you're shaking your head because I know you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But that's when you know you found your person. And that's how you know when you can speak to your person, because knowing who they are and speaking to them are two totally different problems. But honestly, you just want to know your person so well that you can identify what their problems are, and you can explain to them how to solve their problems with whatever it is you're selling.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to say Debbie, for example, and maybe you guys can take a little bit from this. Debbie wants a nice home so she can impress her mother-in-law, but she's busy. She's got, her garden. Maybe she's at work. Maybe she's doing whatever. So we explained to Debbie, hey, we've got this great wreath that you can make your home look like you spent all this time decorating, but you didn't have to. You can just buy it. We know you're busy. You can just take this, hang it on your door. You see how we took Debbie's problem. I already know what the problem is. She wants to impress her freaking mother-in-law. That's crazy. And we explain how our product can solve that problem for her.
Yeah.
And while we're saying, hey, here's how you solve it, we're already taking care of, oh, well, I can't do that because you can't buy it because what? It's affordable. You can't hang it because, oh, there's a video that comes with it, how to hang it. You can't, you answer all of their can'ts while solving the problem with your product.
Yeah, I love that. And
that makes sense. I know I'm like kind of all over the place.
No, it's absolutely genius. And something I learned at a young age was the objection cycle, right? Objections are going to happen. So might as well answer them as best you can up front. Sure. And I'm throwing this out there. I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast. I share this with clients, but some of my services are more expensive than my competitors. That's just the reality. But what I say to people when they're, potential client or whatever, I say, look, I'd rather explain to you the quality now than apologize for poor, or I'd rather explain to you the price now than apologize for poor quality later. Right. And so you can really answer their objections before they come up every single time, because guess what? We've all been rejected. We've all had the no's. We've all understood what's not working. But I love the fact you're like, look, address it. Like, oh, we already know every single objection. So why not answer it in the copy? Right.
And honestly, it all goes back to knowing who Debbie is and what their problems are. Every Debbie is going to have the same objections. They're going to have the same problems, right? They're going to see that meme and say, that's me. People are very, very similar when you niche down to that perfect person.
Yeah. And guys, I want to say this again. Like, this is a wreath business that, fingers crossed, everything works out. They'll do 8 figures this year. Right. And so this is niching down. Don't be afraid to niche down and talk to one Debbie or one person or one Mark or one Mary or whoever you're talking to. Don't be afraid to do it, because you can truly build a massive business while making an impact. And I think that's absolutely huge. So one thing I love to ask every single person I have on the show, because I get the opportunity to talk to some of the world's most successful people, however you define success. So that leads me to ask you a 2-part question. First part is, what is your definition of success? And what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Oh my God. What is my definition of success? I honestly think it's just making the impact that you want to make. Because honestly, like, wreaths are great and all, and I love the business that we have. But if I didn't get to hear all of the different ways that what we were doing were changing people or affecting people positively, I wouldn't care, really. It would just be another, 9 to 5 where I'm just working, I go home, and then I'm looking for that fulfillment somewhere. So like the knowing that something that I'm doing is directly, saving someone potentially from depression, or like I said, the abusive relationship or whatever it is, like, those are really the things that I'm like, man, this is really great that we've done this. This is really something special. And to me, that fulfills me and makes me think that what we're doing is success. That's success to me. The other question is, what are 3 things that I do? Is, you said every day? Does it have to be every day? Can I say like?
No, it doesn't. I always say every day, because I find there's some patterns with every single person I talk to, but it doesn't have to be every day.
Sure. So one thing I do, it's called WNBA. No, MWBA, man. I have to think of the acronym.
Yeah.
It's in the back. Management by walking around. MBWA. MBWA is the acronym. Sorry, y'all. I'm a little slow when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, obviously we have a lot of employees. We have probably 20 people walking around our warehouse at any time. And one of the things that I try to do is manage them by walking around. So not only do I see the things that they're doing wrong, but I also see the things that they're doing right. And I let them know what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right. Right. No one wants a boss that's always like, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. I want to let them know, hey, I really appreciate you picking up that, or I really appreciate you helping that person out, or whatever it was. So that's something I really, really strive to do, especially when it comes to managing a team, because that's by far been one of the hardest things in our business. Everything was easy when it was just me and my partner, right? But once you start having other people in that human element, it's a whole other beast. So that's definitely one thing. Another thing that I do religiously is I go to therapy. I think therapy has been, it not only makes me a better human, but a better boss, a better significant other, a better business owner, a better everything. I think it
Yeah.
just really brings out the better parts of me. And I've never met anyone that went to therapy and was like, "Oh, I hated that." Like they kind of grow into that where it's just like a part of who they are, and they really get to know, what is important to them, what they want to be, how they want to be. And I just can't say enough how therapy has changed me and improved me in every aspect of my life. Um, and then the third thing is I really just remind myself to be consistent and persistent. So I get this question every week. I'm live every week in our business coaching group, and they're always like, "What is one thing you would tell someone?" You get that standard question. What is that one thing that's really, really important?
Yeah.
Honestly, consistency and persistency it's not something that I do, but it's something that I remind myself to strive for, is to be persistent and consistent. Because there's going to be days where it sucks. You don't want to go. You want to fire everyone. You want to quit. You want to do whatever it is. That's where the persistence comes in. And then consistence, as an engineer, it's one thing that I really learned. It's not necessarily the worst thing ever if you do something wrong, but if you're going to do something wrong or right, do it consistently wrong or right. That goes back to the SIO, the simplify, implement, optimize. If you did everything wrong the same way, it's way easier to fix and go back and change. And obviously,
Yeah.
if you're doing something the right way, you want to be consistent and keep doing it right. So that can kind of fall over into every aspect of your life and your business, whether it be training employees, writing processes, creating new businesses, whatever it is. Just be consistent when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Dude, I love it. And persistence and consistency in everything in your life, whether it's your business or how you approach everything. I mean, it's so absolutely true. That's how you get results, by the way. Like if you want success, persistency plus consistency, you're going to win every single time. And the therapy thing was great too. Like I think, the only people I heard that they hate therapy is when they first start, right? Because they have to get uncomfortable.
Oh god, yeah.
And then they love the uncomfortable. They can't wait till they get back to the therapist
Sure.
after X amount of time,
Sure.
which I absolutely love, man. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question, but before I get there, how do people get a hold of you? Where do they get more information? I know you already said the website, but is there anywhere else they can go?
Yeah, that's probably the best way. themakersuniversity.com. We also have a podcast where I talk mostly towards creative business owners, but you guys can absolutely check that out. It's called the Makers Mean Business podcast. Yeah, that's probably the best way. themakersuniversity.com or the Makers Mean Business podcast.
Yeah, guys, definitely check that stuff out. I mean, you can hear how smart this guy is. So go tap into that podcast at least and get all the information. And like you said, most entrepreneurs are makers, whether it's a physical product or a thought leader type of thing. We're all making something, and it's just such a great place to go and learn from more from Parker and his guests and so on and so forth. You guys don't always have guests though, right?
No, we don't. Sometimes it's just me talking at the microphone. Sometimes it's Damon just talking, who's I don't know if I mentioned him, but the business partner, Damon, he's got some great stuff too, for sure.
Love it. So like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. Since the show is called The Growth Now Movement, that question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
My biggest moment of growth. I don't think there's any one specific moment that I can think of, but at some point over the last probably 3 to 5 years, I really just realized that, I am who I am and I own who I am. And that's kind of just how it is, right? Like, I was always trying to be this person. I was always trying to appeal to these people. And at some point I just realized, like, I need to appeal to Parker. I need to be who Parker is and really step into that. And like I said, there's not one exact moment, but it was just kind of growth along the way that one day it just clicked. I was like, I just really just need to be me, and love it or hate it, that's just what it is. So we kind of just to add one more thing, y'all, transparency and honesty and realism is so important in small businesses. Damon and I both try to be as transparent as possible. And I really just think that being who you are is so important. And it's been when I think of growth in myself, I think that's what I think of, is stepping into who Parker is and being that person.
I love it, man. That's so great. And I love how you worded it too, right? It's like the be unapologetically yourself type of thought process. But don't be a dick. I think sometimes people get to that point and then they're just a-holes to everybody. I'm like, that's not how it works. Parker's not a jerk to people. Like, understand the whole process. But dude, this conversation's been phenomenal. Thank you so much. Not only for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom, but for the wreath as well. I'm really excited about the wreath.
Sure.
But this has been an absolute blast. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you, Justin, too.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.